Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the History of Fan Anime. I'm your host, William Chow, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about some FAQs and some information on the early internet. Okay, so a lot of people have been sort of asking questions about, well, there's always been this thing called the internet. What kind of information do you get off of the internet? Okay, or the so-called internet at the beginning. So, before I begin, just want to remind everyone to go down below, click like, and click subscribe, and you maybe throw down a comment or two, because it really helps the YouTube algorithm, work, based on my users interacting. Okay. Also, if you like to support me and you like the particular episodes, I also have the different ways that you can support me on PayPal or on Patreon, as well as the like button below. As I said, you can put a little tip on there as well. Okay, but again, not necessary. But there is some extra content available, which I'm now working on. Almost finished the next batch of 5 episodes, so I'll post that up as soon as I get that. Probably in a week and a bit, I'll have some more new episodes for you people, which are for the subscribers only. All right. So today's topic, of course, is this thing called the what kind of information can you get on the early internet. Okay, so again, we're talking about a period, in the early 1991, 92, basically. We're at an era where, well, obviously, we are before Windows 95, so no Windows interface or anything like that, no Netscape Navigator, no Internet Explorer or anything like that. So you can't view the internet in that way. So what kind of internet do you get, Doug? So there is this thing called the internet that was sort of available. Now, very few people sort of had access to it. I mean, you kind of had to be a student. Okay, so you went to a university or something like that, and a lot of those universities would have a .edu kind of address or something. So that's where a lot of people, including myself, had access to the internet in that respect. Okay, because I went to the University of UBC, so that'd be ubc.bc.ca. Okay, for that. Some people would be part of some sort of government installation. Okay, maybe it would be like NASA, NASA.gov or something like that, or IRS.gov or something like that. Okay, and then they would have access to the internet using those type of addresses. Okay, and of course there's also those big kind of computerish firms, right? They would have the big thing was is to get the .coms, right? So those would be your Microsoft.com and Apple.com and that type of thing in the early ages. Okay, so so the internet was not just for the everyday average person, right? So at this time, personal computers at home were still pretty well much things like the Apple II computers, some various different types of Commodore 64s, 128s, Amigas, of course. A lot of people went to Radio Shack to buy Tandy computers, okay, and whatnot. The emergence of this IBM, PC type of thing, which were basically, 286 and 386 kind of processors were coming out. So we're a very infant state of computer technology. But there's this thing that that kind of existed called the internet, and what a lot of people used was this thing called newsgroups. Okay, if you liked a particular topic, let's say for example anime, they would have something under the big huge spider tree of newsgroups called rec.arts. Okay, recreational arts, right? And then this particular subgroup was called anime. They'd probably have a rec.arts.star Trek and a rec.arts.star Wars, but our particular one they had one for anime. And under this anime, they had different topics as well. But I mean, under the main category, you could post messages about anime. You could ask questions about anime, and people in this community would be able to read that message and be able to answer back. Some news groups, had messages, like a couple messages every day. Some news groups had hundreds of messages every day. But in this particular news group, rec.arts.anime, questions and that kind of stuff sort of came along, and this sort of de facto, well, I wouldn't say a moderator, but a basically a caretaker, if you will. I guess in the modern term, for chats and that kind of stuff, they call them moderators. Um, came across. His name was Stephen Pearl. Okay, and he put together what they refer to as the he actually put it together actually quite a few different lists, right? But this particular one I'm going to go through today is called the anime FAQs, okay, or frequently asked questions. And sure, I mean, he maintained this up to about 1998, okay, where then the internet sort of took off a little bit more, and he didn't need to keep updating this anymore. But for the main stake of it, he did have this great sort of all complete sort of FAQ, which had a lot of the really heavily talked about topics, and some of the answers to some of the great questions that were sort of asked in the early 90s, in that sort of era when all these new anime companies started releasing anime. Notably things like Aniego doing their releases in around 92. A lot of the new releases in 95 when A Division and those guys started coming into the play. And and that's sort of when the whole industry started getting off its feet. Anime conventions were just starting to have a rise, and some sort of footing, right? I'm referring to the beginning of things like Anime America, Project Acon, and even of course the very infant birth of Anime Expo. Okay. But all that sort of information is sort of in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to the thing and go through the list with you and sort of go through some of the questions and kind of elaborate on some issues here and points here and there, and then you can see for yourself what kind of questions that kind of popped up, and you can see what they are. Okay, so without further delay, let's begin. Okay, so here we have the anime rec.arts rec.arts.anime, the frequently asked questions list. Okay, so this has been moderated by a person named Stephen Pearl. Now, of course, unfortunately, Steve Pearl has passed, but then that's he's probably one of the most well-known people that is in the anime world because of this particular type of FAQ list, and amongst other things that he does. So this is why even myself, because of we're all getting up there in age, it's very important that we all get our messages and our stories out there, so that it can be shared, and and people it has been marked down and whatnot as my account of things that have happened in the past. Because otherwise, as now that Steven's not with us, he's not able to for example tell us about his experiences at the various different conventions and all the different things that he's gone through, and any special stories that he's sort of remembered from the early days of the internet. So this is just kind of adds to the importance of these kind of videos. So I hope you're enjoying them, and getting the the involvement of history that's in these episodes. All right. So you put together this this FAQ sheet based on things that have been talked about, questions that keep on popping up over and over again. So he's taken those things. He's taken the authors of those messages and that kind of stuff, and put them all together into one sort of FAQ sheet. And every once in a while he'll post up and have archives of the particular FAQ sheet so that people can look at them and read all the different questions and that kind of stuff. And most likely a lot of their questions might be answered by using this FAQ sheet. Okay. So I want to go through the FAQ sheet, go through some of the questions. I'm not going to read every single one because obviously you can do that yourself. But if there's anything that's sort of more significant and kind of neat that I should elaborate on, I'll point that out as we go through the questions. All right. Now the first question is what this information about anime cons. Okay, so really quick history. Now I remember I went to Anime America 1991. Okay. this first sort of rendition of these anime conventions. And I went to various different conventions before, including San Diego Comic Con even beforehand. And this particular year, not only did we go to Anime America, but I also went down to Comic Con. And I remember at Comic Con, they had Kenichi Sonoda suddenly sort of appear, and he was going to promote this new convention that was coming out called Anime Expo. And so, we were really excited about that. I remember I got in line and, got something signed from, there's a story of that in my, convention stories and that kind of stuff. So if you want to know what happened when I tried to get the sketch drawn by Kenichi Sonoda at San Diego Comic Con, then go back and check that out. But so after this, they created this Anime Expo, and of course from there, many more different sort of conventions sort of occurred, right? And so he goes on and gives some information about the different types of conventions and that kind of stuff. But it said before this, really, we had to really piggyback anime conventions off of other conventions, usually Star Trek conventions, usually science fiction conventions, usually comic conventions, things like that. We had to kind of, be part of them because we didn't have enough attendance to just run just an anime convention. And again, when 1992 came out, when all these companies were starting to release stuff, started coming out, this sort of snowballed into a much bigger effect. So again, he kind of goes over that in here. Now the next one is in jokes inside Star Trek. Now, I guess Star Trek's not the only, popular media thing that actually uses references of anime. But, yeah, I mean, other than they mentioned, my funny story with Star Trek is that I'd actually gotten a letter from the, can't say the person's name, obviously, because he actually told me not to put it onto a website. And I'd take it off my website, I should say. But some assistant director or something, he used official Paramount Pictures, stationery and letterhead. I'll have to make an episode about abusing company property. Yeah, I'll do that in another episode because I did it too. So he sent me an anime request on Paramount Pictures, official letterhead, right? And so it's not just the fact that they used, it's different types of anime, including Gundam, including Legend of Zelda, and things like that in their, show. They kind of slip them in there, right? So, that's, my concern. So again, I'll probably get into that once I get all, some more, a little bit more goodies. So stay tuned for that episode. So, next question is, what is Daikon? Now, Daikon was this really short anime piece that they made. They made Daikon 3 and Daikon 4. And it was basically, a play by Bunny, if you like, going through all this different anime and popular culture kind of stuff. And you'll see all the little references that are, stuck in there, even for just, a couple frames, some of them. You just barely spot them. And but it was a really popular thing that a lot of people wanted to carry, and get and watch because everyone was talking about it. And so that's the sort of thing. And again, you can probably go into all the different references about what is shown in them. But obviously, lots of influence from big shows like Macross and a lot of the giant robot shows and things like Godzilla and whatnot, all kind of all mixed together in there. It was very, very pretty well distributed, and a lot of people knew what it was. Again, the company, Gainax, obviously then went on to make other big, shows like Gunbusters, and of course, eventually Evangelion and things like that. Okay, the next question is, what was the first OEVA? Now, again, I think this is the difference between the actual one and the technical one, I suppose, or the de facto one. Everyone says it's Megazone 23, and probably, if you look at what the titles beforehand, it was Space Station Delos that first came out, and another one that no one knows what it is, and also there's another one called Birth, which which did also show up on a bunch of lists and that kind of stuff. Again, kind of unknown and whatnot, but when you get to the year that Megazone 23 came out, it came out with Area 88. Also came with Yoko Leda, the notorious Nora. Um, you know, this was the big flood of OEVA started coming out, and of course, out of this batch, I definitely would put Megazone 23 as the de facto standard for OEVAs at this time. This is probably one of the most successful OEVAs at this particular time, showing that it doesn't have to be the length of a movie. You can actually be even shorter than that, and people will still be interested in it. Okay, so the next one is, what is the symbolism behind the water drop? I mean, just like many other symbols and that kind of stuff, there right, to help as a carryover from what the manga used to be. And of course, there's many different symbols, like is it not just a teardrop, but little hammers. For example, City Hunter has the little butterfly or crows that fly across the screen, and they all symbolize different things that was carried over from the manga. Again, you could read up on that. Okay, the next one is just an example of just how picky, the early anime fans were. When the manga for Ah My Goddess, and subsequently the OVA came out, the people at Anime decided, well, how do we make this more English? Well, they wanted to change it to Oh My Goddess, because obviously we say Oh My God. And of course, this is just one of these type of things where we're trying to make it more English, more sociable, without really paying attention to, like, for example, how it was really written in Japanese. Because we somehow think that we know better, and of course, they ask for advice, and that kind I guess, the original person probably wouldn't know the difference, because that's like asking us, if we were going to try to translate something into a different language, how we should translate, how we would interpret it and how we wanted it to be in another language when we don't really speak that other language, right? So, for example, let's just take a music example. Would you take Der Kommissar by Falco? Translates to the commissioner, but I think commissioner's too long. It's too hard to comprehend what that commissioner does. So we'll just call it Cops. Is that a good translation? Well, I don't know. Okay, the next question is the Orange Road OEVA and episode 45. They're basically essentially the same story. They just, one's in summertime, one's in the wintertime, skiing resort kind of thing question. So go that sort of relationship thing there. The next one is on Laserdisc anime games, and just commenting on the different games that use, for example, Lupin, Armageddon, Cobra Command, Galaxy Express 399. We can also add, like, Space Ace and Dragon's Lair, things like that, where the video game ran on a Laserdisc. Okay, but again, that's kind of cool. The next one is Lupin and Rupan. Okay, so this is again a phonetical thing as well as a copyright issue. Okay, and they just explain that Lupin is an actual copyrighted name kind of thing because it's based on something else, and so to avoid the copyright, they actually had to intentionally wreck the name and call it Rupan. Okay. Then again, if you can look at the Japanese phonetics, okay, there is no LU sound to make Lu. It's RU, right? Based off the phonetic, la di lu la ro, right? So it has to be Lu, which is the closest thing. So that's how they named it Rupan. Now, since this Japanese animation thing was like getting to be a new sort of genre, a new sort of thing, a lot of people got really interested in learning how to to speak and maybe even understand Japanese. So the common question is what kind of books and what kind of material would help us, and give some suggestions. So again, these are a compilation of some of the better ideas and things that people would like to use. So the next part here is about Robotech and Megazone 23. And basically, it's all part of the brainchild of one person named Carl Macek, who is, again, in many ways quite hated by the anime community, because in his quest to try to make, Robotech a mass marketable type of thing, i.e. try to get it syndicated and to try to make it into a theater movie, he basically tried his very best to combine and take footage from different animes and that kind of stuff to try to toss it together like a salad and try to present it to people, the public, as a complete product. So, for example, the Robotech itself was, 3 different series: Macross, Southern Cross, and Mospeada. But because of the syndication rules, you had to have at least 85 episodes in order to syndicate a show for reruns and stuff, right? So, because any of these animations only have like 36 episodes or even less, he couldn't do that. So the only way to do it is to kind of mix them all together, pretend they are all the same, and then we can call it Robotech, and therefore we can get it syndicated. So, he's credited for that. And of course, Megazone was brought into the mix because he thought maybe this would be a sequel, and we can throw it into and make it a Robotech movie kind of thing by using footage out of that. But of course, the movie was really, really short because as OVAs are. He decided, well, we'll mix in some other elements back from Robotech again, and kind of make it, so it sort of makes sense, and then try to, make a big mess out of things. And again, it was so horribly received. The next little FAQ is basically about the films coming out from Studio Ghibli, which is basically things like, your Nausicaa, your Laputa, Kiki's Delivery Service, Princess Mononoke, things like that. Very, very big name titles, obviously. And so basically, a large company like Disney has licensed them, and basically was releasing them out. Again, the big worry was that Disney was going to try to, make them more kidified, okay, because of, to add them to the Disney catalog type of thing. But they fortunately, had versions which were, very, very, very faithful, and of course, a lot of people did buy them up, and that was really popular. Okay. So yeah, it seems to fit over the 20-minute mark here. So again, I'm not going to try to speed through the rest of these episodes. I'm going to basically cut it and make it into another episode because I don't want to, I want to go through all the points in the FAQ properly because I think that's how Stephen probably would have wanted me to do it, and go through them carefully in the next episode. So again, make sure you go down below, click like, and click subscribe so that when I get that next episode out, then you can continue going through this. All right. All right, I hope you found that kind of interesting, and see what kind of environment we had. Like I said, like getting information was very, very limited, and what we talked about was kind of really narrow because the fact that a lot of the topics that we focused, there's not a lot of people knew about a lot of different things, right? So a lot of topics were all more or less centered on some very key animes that everyone was sort of having their eyes on, right? So. You can tell that by seeing some of the actually frequently asked questions. These are the questions that people are always asking. Okay, so I'm going to get into more the things that I found on the internet and elaborate more on how they relate to this particular time, as well as I got more fan letters coming up where I've managed to find some of the very, very first people that I actually wrote to in the actually very early ages of like the 1988, 89. So even before I really started doing fan subbing, when I was just getting my feet into the CFO and into tape trading and that kind of stuff, I managed to find some of the letters to some of the first people that I actually wrote to, and so I'm going to get into those ones and kind of go into those a little bit more detail and do some more work on that. All right, so don't forget to make sure you're subscribed below. Make sure you have your notifications on so that I can, when those episodes come out, you'll know. All right? Okay. So, until next time, see you again.